But just to give it some kind of historical reference, Edgehill is one of the very first neighborhoods in all of Nashville. The mayor, Robert Curry, he was the mayor and postmaster, and his house was over on Rose Park, so kind of up on Edgehill between like 12th and 8th Avenue. There's a park there now. Belmont has a sports complex there, but his house was up there, and it burned down and he moved away. But really, it was called Curry Hill after that, and he really started the neighborhood, and that was in 1820. And then during the Civil War, there were 3 high points in the neighborhood. So one being Fort Negley is probably the one that we've been hearing a lot about if you've been following any of that. But before, there was a freeway before that. That actually felt more like Edgehill, but now I-65 kind of cuts through that area. But before that, that was one of the high points of this neighborhood. And then the 2 others were Reservoir Park, which is on 8th Avenue, out kind of off that way, and then where the first mayor's house, well, maybe not the first mayor, but in 1820 where the first mayor's house was up on the Rose Park Hill. So those were 3 Civil War forts at the time. And after the war was over, well, a lot of those forts were built with the work of enslaved people and freed slaves that would come in. And there's even some speculation now that that Fort Negley was part of the Underground Railroad, even in terms of getting freed slaves up to the north. So it's really kind of some interesting history that's coming out there. But after the war, this neighborhood, especially on not west, the eastern side of Edgehill, there were a lot of African Americans that stayed and made this a really thriving community there. And that was mostly on kind of the 8th Avenue side, closer to where all those forts were. And so in the 20s, or actually right at the turn of the century, so from 1890 to about 1930 or so, this western side was built. And you'll see, I think if you kind of look out this way, you'll see on the right side, you'll see a lot of old historic houses, and a lot of those have kind of started to fall into disrepair over time. Now they're a very hot commodity, as you might imagine. So, but on the left here, you'll see something really brand new and modern, and we're starting to see that really mixed in. And, and it's not always good. It's not always easy to have, some of the changes that are happening in the neighborhood. And I'm really open, and I'll answer any questions, kind of when we get to know each other a little bit about, some of that over time. But one of the things that our neighborhood has really stood up for is that we really believe in quality of life for neighbors, whether you've been here 50, 60 years, as some of the residents have, or if you've been here for 2 months. And one of the things that we've noticed is that sometimes when the new houses come in with the number of curb cuts, they're kind of chopping up the sidewalk and making it less safe for like kids who are biking or running, or pedestrians are walking. We're a really walking neighborhood. And so we advocated with our council person to kind of change a little bit of our zoning so that all new houses have to face the street in a real neighborhood feel, because we feel like that's what our houses have done historically, is face the street. And we have a really great neighborhood where people know each other because they walk out and they see each other. And so this house happened right before we did that. And you'll notice there's a garage that's facing Villa, where the previous house faced Villa. So it was just kind of just feels kind of ugly to have a house with a garage on the street in a historic residential neighborhood.